Hello, happy Wednesday, everyone. Let's make sure. I think we are live to go now. I've got the chat box open. Perfect. Okay, hi everyone. There are a ton of new people in this group this week, which I'm really excited about because therapy intensives feels like there's getting a lot more traction around them, what they are, what they can do for you, what they can do for your clients. So I'm excited just to share more information with everybody. So if you are new to the group, just to introduce myself a little bit, my name is Amanda Baduris. I am a licensed psychologist in private practice in Oregon. I've been in private practice for a while, been doing therapy intensives for a while, and I'm excited to be sharing more about intensives with people. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the topic of how to add therapy intensives to your practice and not just add them as a service that you do, but also to actually book them, because that's kind of the whole point that we want, right? We want to offer these really impressive and effective services, and we want people to know they exist, and we want people to book them. So again, if you are newer here, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let me know where you're signing on from. If you are catching the replay, let me know if any questions come up for you after that, and I will answer those as soon as I see those come in. But yeah, for our topic today, we're kind of just going to dive right in. I've got about 30, 35, 40 minutes just to kind of talk. If there are questions, please let me know that in the chat, and I'll answer those as I see them come in. But again, if intensives are newer to you, again, you've probably heard a little bit about them. Maybe you've seen other therapists offer them. You've seen just kind of that they can be really cool, and there's something that you're looking to do. Hi, Shannon. I'm in Eugene, which is close to Portland, which is close-ish to Seattle. Hi, Rebecca. So with intensives, I think it's been so cool to add them to my practice because I do trauma intensives and I also do couple intensives. Hi, Tanya. I'm from Chicago. That's fun. So I do different types of intensives just to, I really like variety in my caseload. So I do trauma work, I do couples work, I do intensives, and I also still do the kind of weekly sessions. So I've had a lot of success with therapy intensives. So many people who, in a matter of half a day, 2 half days, clients who have made such significant progress in therapy that they never thought they would have been kind of in this place in such a short period of time. Hi, East Coast here, fun. All right, so when it comes to intensives, right, these are not just good for really increasing therapeutic progress for clients, because it is, ultimately at the end of the day, all I say is a therapy intensive is a fancy word for it's a lot of therapy at once. There doesn't have to be anything super magical about it. You don't necessarily need extra training to do them. It's just a lot of the stuff is about your mindset around them, right? For you, you probably already do really good therapy, but you're probably limited to 45, 50, or 60-minute sessions. Some people have had experience doing 90-minute sessions, which is definitely an intensive session. But you already know exactly what to do. It's just about how do you talk about it to clients? How do you market it? How do you write copy on your website so that people read it and they're like, that's exactly what I need. This person gets me, and that's why they're offering this service. And that's why I'm willing to pay them a really good price for it. So, Rebecca, to your question, I do a mix of online and in-person services. I will find more typically couples prefer in-person services, but I have a lot of individuals who are just fine with online. Some people will have questions about if, is there a difference, right? Especially if I'm doing EMDR or brain spotting, people ask, well, is there a difference if I do it in person versus online? And not necessarily. None that I've ever seen. Any of the research that I'm aware of doesn't show there's any clinically significant difference in them. So usually most people are just fine with the one-on-ones online. For structuring my week, that's a really good question, which is where we're diving into. So when it comes to, I know the topic of this is how do I add and book in 2024? I want to make clear, I don't think it's going to take you until 2024 to have this as a service that you are offering, I feel pretty confident that you all, if you were dedicated and committed to this, you could probably be booking intensives within the next month. So this is more about, I know I've talked with some of you and you've said, it's not like I'm in a rush to add this. It just feels like it's something cool that I have as a big vision as a part of my long-term game for private practice. So again, I don't think it's going to take you long to do it. I think it's just if you want to be intentional and mindful about, okay, so how am I going to structure my practice, especially if I'm doing still weekly sessions and intensives, whether that's routine intensives, because some people work intensively, like weekly 90-minute sessions, and then some people will do more just like only intensive packages. So that is like step one, is to be thinking about, when it comes to intensives, what goals do you want to set with that? So is this what you want to fully transition to? Do you only want to do intensive services? Again, I'm at a point right now in my practice where I've got maybe 10 people I'm seeing weekly. Every now and then I've got bi-weekly people, monthly maintenance people, so I might see 13 to 15. But my caseload weekly is very small, and I haven't taken on anyone weekly in months because I'm prioritizing the therapy intensive packages that I offer. And as more clients kind of graduate and transition services from weekly, I'll probably continue to only do therapy intensive packages because I've seen them be really effective. And I really like the work that's done in that way. So is that something you want to transition fully to? Or is this something that you do want to balance with weekly clients? Because that's something that you want to be mindful of. This is not about, the whole goal of therapy intensives is to work smarter, not harder. A lot of you are saying, I feel capped at my income when it comes to the weekly sessions. So there might be this drive or this maybe thought of, well, if I do all of my weekly work and then therapy intensives on top of that, like that's a lot of work. What I don't want you to do is to be burning out. So I want you to be intentional about if you're going to be balancing weekly with therapy intensives, just what do you want that to look like? And some of those questions might come down to, some of those answers to those questions might come down to, what are your income goals for each month? What do you need to be making? What do you want to be making? Because if it's you want a balance, then maybe you only need 1 or 2 intensives a month. If you want to transition fully, you need a little bit more, maybe like prep time for that. And then how much of your income goal, how much is that going to be comprised of the intensives? So that's going to be also, well, what are you charging for the intensives? Tanya, I see that question about billing insurance. So I don't personally bill insurance, but I know a lot of therapists who do intensives who do bill insurance. So there are ways you can make it work. Generally, the biggest advice and guidance I've seen is if you are in communication or you've got a biller who can contact the insurance plan, there are some ways that some people are being creative. Some of you may know that there used to be extended session codes that got discontinued by CMS at the beginning of this year, which is really unfortunate. But there are some creative ways that you can kind of get around that. Really, that's maybe a little bit more restricted to the 90-minute sessions, because some insurances will take billing 2 units of the 90834, so 2 45-minute sessions. Some insurances will take, you can bill 2 units of 90837, so that would give you about 2 hours. But the risk of that is that some insurance will either, okay, well, we're just going to reimburse 1 unit because we don't authorize 2 units, or actually now we're not going to reimburse any units. So I always recommend you call the insurance plan directory directly. If you have a biller, have them contact the plan directly and ask those questions of, is this something that can be accommodated? If so, what are the billing practices around that? So it's not a specific yes, no, right away kind of answer, but it's a it depends kind of answer. And that said, depending on how you structure any intensives that you would do, again, whether you're looking at, I'm doing 90-minute sessions with most clients, or I'm doing like therapy intensive packages, like my trauma ones are 3 to 4 hours at once. So I like to tell people, you know, your intake session, that's definitely, I do super bills if people are using their out-of-network benefits. So I'll let them know the intake session, that's definitely eligible for reimbursement. At least one of the hours for our meetings would be eligible for reimbursement. And then I always schedule a follow-up 2-4 weeks after the intensive session. So I let them know that's also eligible. So a lot of people, when they do have out-of-network benefits, are at least a little more reassured by there is a component of this that can be reimbursed. So it's not the straight up sticker price that it looks when you're advertising that on your website. So all of that is also really good to be thinking about in terms of how this does fit into your practice. I do have if you go in the guide section of this Facebook page, I have a guide I put together around some of those pieces with insurance and questions that you want to be asking, ways you can talk with your clients about it. So comment on that if you all want me to message that to you, and I can do that. But otherwise, so again, we're thinking about what's the ultimate plan here for your practice. Is it all intensives? Is it balancing intensives and non-intensives? What does that look like? So that's step one. But then thinking about two, all right, now what do I do with marketing them? What do I do with putting it on my website? What do I do with even having conversations with my current clients about this? Excuse me. Because that is a part of it, right? You already have some really good leads right in front of you. There are people who know the good work that you do. There are people that trust the work that you do. So sometimes even just having a conversation with your current clients about, I've noticed sometimes when we're talking, when we're doing any of this processing work, sometimes it feels like we come up against time and that keeps getting in the way. Like, what would you think about doing something a little bit different? What would you think about trying a 90-minute session? What would you think about, like, whatever that is? But you can pitch to your current clients because, again, they're going to be the ones that are probably going to sometimes be easiest to sell. There are definitely ways to sell people really well just based on how you market it. But even starting there, right? Seeing what is the current interest. Some people feel a little bit more comfortable starting that way because it's already a client they know, a client they feel comfortable and that they trust. And it feels, I think anytime we do something new as a therapist, there's a little bit of anxiety. So that can reduce a little bit of the anxiety because you already know this person. It's not a completely new kind of brain and nervous system that you're working with an entirely new client. But for your website, my recommendations are around, number one, list it on your website. List that this is something that you can do and do it in a way that's very clear and that answers any questions people are going to have about that. And so what that means is, I know I've seen some therapist websites where they say, on the rates and FAQ page, here's my 50-minute session hourly fee, here's my 75 or 90-minute, or we'll say something like, is prorated after that if we meet for longer. That's very vague. That leaves a lot of questions of, well, what does that mean? Why would we meet for longer? How do the fees exactly work out for that? Why would I pay more for therapy? So there's a lot of those questions involved. And so what I tell people, what I have on my therapy website is have a whole separate page of your website dedicated to just intensives so that you can answer all of those questions about this is what an intensive is, this is why I offer it, this is how it's going to help you, and this is why, especially if you do charge a premium fee, which I will challenge you all to do because you are worth it and your time is worth it. Okay, so why does it cost a premium fee? But actually, how does it save clients money in the long term? Because if a client can pay, my trauma therapy intensive prices can cost, with the intake, with the sessions, with the follow-up, around $2,000. That's usually on the low end. Sometimes it's $25,000, or like you all seen when you join this group, up to like $5,000. If people can experience a significant amount of change within 2 days, they're going to see that cost as worth, well, in weekly therapy, if I'm spending, let's say your rate is like $150 or $200, how many weeks are going by where I'm still not feeling better? And now it's months and I'm still having spent the same amount of money. So help them do that math. Help them see how you are going to save money and you're also going to spend a lot more time feeling better. Like laying out all those pain points and how intensives are the answer to some of these pain points, right? They're going to sell themselves just based off of the website so that when they get to the consultation call with you, they don't really have any questions other than what's your schedule look like? That's what most of my consultations for intensives look like these days. It's like, nope, that makes sense. Yep, okay, all right, let's go. So that's what you really want to be thinking about of how do you market that on your website. So having a whole separate page just about them, having a very thorough FAQ page, really letting the clients know that you understand why they're struggling with the traditional model of therapy, right? Because they're waiting weeks and months to feel better when actually they could feel significantly better in half a day, 2 half days, a week, whatever you kind of choose to structure your program as. Another thing you'd want to think about then is how much do you charge for it? So my guidance to people is take your, if you have a 50-minute rate, I want you to calculate your 60-minute rate. So whatever your amount is divided by 50 and then times 60, so your hourly rate. And then I want you to have that hourly rate and multiply it by 20% for an intensive session. So part of how I think about this is generally what I do is I work Mondays through Thursdays, and if a client wants to meet in that time, it's okay. Well, here's my hourly rate. I do charge a percentage on top of that for the intensive sessions because it is more effort on my part. You do get to prioritize when you're getting scheduled. There's a lot of times I just had a intensive consultation with someone on Monday, and I could get them scheduled for the intake appointment the following Monday, and then their intensive session on that Friday. So when you structure your appointment in a way that people can get in super quick, they're going to see any cost as worth it. Maybe not any cost. If you were charging like 20 grand for a half day, they might have some questions, but people are going to get why, like, yeah, I'm paying a premium price, I'm getting a premium service. I am treated like a VIP. I've used the metaphor before of like, if you go to amusement parks, you get the express pass, the fast pass, whatever they call them. People pay more money to wait less, right? Very much in the same case as therapy. So thinking about what you charge, again, I work Mondays through Thursdays. If someone schedules an appointment in that time, then I do 20% on top of that hourly rate. So my rate at the 60 minutes is currently $330. So the 20% on top of that would be $396. So just to give you an example, right, of already I'm getting like $400 an hour. But some people need to prioritize working on the weekends. Maybe they've got jobs where they can't take time off, or it's just more convenient for them to work on the weekends. And maybe you don't work on the weekends. Maybe you don't want to work on the weekends. A lot of you have kids, a lot of you have families, a lot of you have other commitments that you're doing, and maybe you want to protect your weekends. And in that case, right, number one, again, you always have the permission to don't do something you don't want to do, or really incentivize yourself to like, okay, for 4 hours on a weekend, like what would it cost? What would it take? What price to get me out, do a little bit of work, have the rest of the weekend to myself? So when it comes to anyone who wants to schedule Friday through Sunday, then I do 50% on top of my hourly rate. So for me, that's $4.95 an hour, which is where I start to make a lot more when I'm doing work on the weekends, which again, then allows me to have the flexibility in my Monday through Thursday to not see that many clients. If I've got 8 clients scheduled in 1 week, I'm not really stressed about it because I made $2,200 or sometimes $3,300 on a weekend. So this is all about like, how does it balance out to help you? So think about what is the rate that you would want to charge. Again, my guidance is going to be 20% on top of the hourly rate. If it's in your traditional working hours, 50% if it's outside of those traditional hours. Hi, Sawanya. And then thinking about other ways to market it, right? So I've already said, put it on your website. I've said, talk with your current clients about it. And then think about where else are you already marketing? So if you have referral sources, if there are doctor's offices, psychiatrists, if there are other people that you already have connection to, let them know, hey, this is a cool new service that I'm offering. This is exactly the perfect fit for whatever it is. I don't know how one psychiatrist in my state came to learn of my services, but she did, and she refers everyone to me that she feels really stuck with. She's like, we've done all this medication management, and like, I sent this first client to Amanda, and she came back totally different. I'm gonna send another client to Amanda, and another client to Amanda. which is great, right? I didn't technically even have to do that marketing, but I'm pretty sure that psychiatrist found me. If she didn't hear word of mouth from another therapist or client, then she found me on my website. So this all comes back to your website can be the base foundation of your marketing, because if you explain what you do, why you do it, and again, for intensives, why it's really effective and why people want to do it, you really don't have to market much at all, right? I get consultations for intensives literally booked in my sleep because people just are Googling things and they're finding me, and I've got a scheduler on my website. So think about what are those referral sources you already have, and how do you just let them know it's something that you're doing? Think about how you can really advertise it on your website. You can even put it on your Psychology Today or whatever therapy directories you might be on. Know that that's not going to be, I don't think a ton of people are going to come from it, but I have had people call me from Psychology Today and transition into a therapy intensive with me. So it's not off the books. So there's tons of different ways that you can actually put the word out there that this is something that you're doing. And again, you want to be thinking about however that is, especially if you have a business social media, if you make posts, you do reels, things like that. You really want to emphasize, I get the pain points, right? So how frustrated are you that you've been in therapy for years and haven't seen any movement, that you're not still in the place that you want to be? You can't even prioritize weekly therapy because your job is so hectic and you're always traveling, and stupid state laws say you can't work with your therapist when they're in a different state. And you hit all those pain points of why let's just sit down for a few hours on one day and get a lot of work done. Let them know that you get it, because the more that they feel gotten and understood by you, the more they will want to reach out to you. And to think about, okay, so if you are thinking about, you all are excited about, I want to make a few grand off of a therapy intensive, you get it. You know your time is valuable. You know the worth of a therapy intensive. But again, what questions or concerns might clients have? Are they going to ask questions like, well, how does this fit with insurance? Well, do you have payment plans? What would payments look like? So think about all those questions they might ask. And again, put that all on your website, and then be ready to answer any of those questions on the consultation calls. So being really prepared for those is helpful. So all of these different pieces, and again, I didn't mention this, but for anyone who's newer, if I'm looking at the left side, that's just where all my notes are. So just looking at my notes, making sure I'm covering everything. When it comes to marketing the intensives, updating your website on the intensives, so again, just having that separate web page is huge. And then if you haven't already, think about how do you update your copy in a way that's very Google friendly. So if you haven't done any kind of SEO work optimization, that's really important, because the more that your pages are set out really well, they're really helpful, they're not just Google friendly, but also phone friendly, because a lot of us are looking for therapy on our phones these days. The more that you've got that all into place, again, the more your website is going to be your 24/7 marketing tool. So all those different pieces, recapping what we've talked about so far. We've talked through some marketing strategies. We've talked through some updates you can make to your website, and talking with any current clients, as well as networking. So collaborating with, again, those clients you or referral sources that you already work with, letting them know this is a thing you do. All of these are things that are really going to help you make a plan for, okay, within the next month, within the next few months, or when I start making some changes in my business in 2024, you'll be off to a really good start in that way. And one piece too that I want to say maybe explicitly, because I know this was really helpful for me when I was starting to move more from, here's the weekly stuff that I'm doing, here's how I want to prioritize therapy intensives. Literally block time off on your schedule for this. So I started blocking off, okay, just every other Monday, those are just going to be for intensives. And then I stopped offering Mondays, or at least every other Mondays, to my routine therapy clients. So if this is something that you want to do in your practice, even look out into January. Is there a day you want to block off just for intensives? Do you want to block off multiple half days for intensives? But literally plan for this to be successful, because it will be, right? If all you do is book one, maybe even to 2,000, 1,000, like whatever that might be, therapy intensives a month, that can significantly change a lot in your practice and in your income. So plan for it to be successful, right? Like if you put it out there, if you sell it well, people will want to pay you to work in this way. So I've got a couple more pieces to go over, but if there are questions, please put those in the chat and I will answer those. But actually looking at my thing, that really is all that I have to go through. There's just more that I can mention with any specific like planning related pieces. And you all are on my email list, so you can see just more motivation that I put out there, more resources that I have, ways that this can be really helpful for you. There's different ways I can help you in a one-on-one or a group capacity if you need a little bit more guidance of how do I make this work. I've got tons of resources that I give people. Like I was sharing with you all my rates earlier. I've got an Excel sheet that I will give you just to, how do I calculate my rate? How do I tell a client on a consultation call? Because this is what I'll do, is I'll have it in front of me and say, well, this is that rate if we meet on this day. This is that approximate pricing package if we met on this day, if we met for multiple days. So I have different resources that I give you like that, scripts that I give you for how to talk with current clients, scripts to put up on your website. So if you want any more of that kind of support, reach out to me, let me know. You can reach out either on Facebook Messenger, y'all have my email, any way that would be helpful. Individual, and I don't do group intensives, but I do couples intensives. So I do both. I really like, again, having that balance, and I structure each of them a little bit differently. I think someone had asked that question too of, okay, so how does that actually look different from a weekly appointment? And that's the thing, right? Is in a weekly appointment, you check in, you do some work, you check out. So that's all I really do in an intensive session with an individual or a couple. It's exactly the same. You just have more time, right? So you don't have to think about, shoot, we only have 15 minutes left. We better wrap up and, think about what we're going to talk about next time. You've got a lot of time. The majority of times, the experiences I have with my clients is they feel so much freer to dive in and they get more comfortable much more quickly. I had someone who I had scheduled a 4-hour intensive with, and at like 2.5 hours, she joked because she's like, I think I can finally cry. And usually it takes me months before I can cry in front of a therapist. So, right, like everything that you're doing is exactly the same. It's just, you just have more time to do it. So there's nothing fancy that you have to think about when it comes to how do I structure it. But in terms of like marketing a package around it, that's where maybe some of those questions are around how do you structure it. So what I do either way for my couples or my individuals is I schedule the intake beforehand. So whether that's a week, whether that's even just like the day before, I like to have that separate so that I can prep them for what the intensive is about. And then when we get to the intensive, we're just diving right in. And again, same thing. We're checking in. What's the focus for today? We do the work. And then we do that until we run out of time. And then we wrap up. We talk about what's the next step moving forward. I do EMDR intensives, I do brain spotting intensives, I incorporate some IFS into my work, and then for my couples intensives, I'm trained in emotionally focused therapy. So those are the focuses that I have for that. So then too, right, when you're thinking about your marketing techniques, right, if you're already talking about all those things on your website, right? Like then talk about, and here's why working in this way intensively is going to be really helpful, because we know that we just have more time. But that's something I really like to drive home too, is that intensives are not just for EMDR. Like also literally you could just do a talk therapy intensive, right? Like we all know there's benefits to all of the therapies. There's no, monopoly on who gets to do intensives or not. I think people in the trauma field, and especially EMDR, maybe they've been doing it a little bit longer, but you can do anything. You can do somatic experiencing work for 2 hours. You can do art therapy work for extended periods of time. So you definitely don't need to be trained in one specific modality to do an intensive. So I'm really happy that you're more motivated about that, Sean. And then for families, absolutely, that's something, I'm not trained in family therapy, but the same components, right, of especially the more brains, the more nervous systems we have in the room, like of course we need more time because we know that that's hard in a 50-60 minute therapy model. So the more time that we just get to like, all right, let's just, everyone on a weekend, we're coming and we're gonna sit down for 4 or 5 hours and we're just gonna go through all this stuff. Again, I think a lot of people would see benefit to that because especially when it's a family unit involved, there's a lot of people that are probably hurting. So I think a lot of people could get behind, could kind of get on board to, yes, this is something that we need to do. And especially there's not a lot of people who do really good family therapy. There's not a lot of people who do really good family therapy on a weekend. So all these different pieces that just help your marketing efforts justify your pricing. So all of these things, I think they're great ideas. I don't think there's ever a bad idea I've heard for a therapy intensive. I've also heard some people get really creative with, if you are trained in lots of different modalities or you have good kind of like partnerships with other types of professionals, people have done some really creative intensive packages of, you know, we're going to do 8 hours of therapy, we're going to have the 4 hours of therapy, and then you're going to have a break and you're going to go to this massage therapist, and then you're going to do some trauma-informed yoga, and then we're going to come back and do more trauma therapy. So you can be as creative as you want with this process. So that's what I want you all to think about is when, again, we're looking ahead to the new year, right? This is not about you have to wait till the new year to implement any of this, to start drafting some copy on your website or anything like that. But this is really just about, I want you all to be intentional about not burning yourself out, not adding more work onto your plate, but being intentional about how you want to add this. And so if that is looking into the new year, starting to block off some dates, starting to think about what are those packages I'm going to offer, am I shifting to all intensives or doing a mixture? Just want you all to think about that and then be intentional about it and then ask me questions if you have them. I usually do these lives. Usually it's bi-weekly at this point because there are some stuff, trainings, vacation stuff that comes up, but ask questions here. Again, message me, email me, whatever would be helpful. Thanks, Ashley. Let me know how I can support you. So I think that's it for today, unless there's any last questions, but thank you all for joining, and I will post the replay. And again, if you are watching the replay, feel free to leave comments on the video because I see those as they come in, and I'll answer any questions that came up. But I hope everyone has a good rest of your day, good rest of your week. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.